everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my weekly wrap-up of March 1st, 2015. I am literally letting my hair down. So if you'll remember from my last weekly wrap-up, I had a pretty ambitious list of library books I wanted to get through before the end of February so that I could concentrate solely on my unread books in March. That was ambitious to begin with, and then my week did not quite go the way I expected. I am astonished I actually got more than a couple of books finished. I finished 5 things, and it was kind of a mixed bag. The first book I finished was The Diamond Age by Neal Stephenson. This is only my second Neal Stephenson novel, so of course I'm going to be comparing this book a lot to Snow Crash mentally in my head because that's the book that I read by him first. The Diamond Age is actually the first book that I attempted to read by Stephenson, and I DNF'd it because I could not deal with that dude getting a gun implanted in his skull. Now, when I told Jane from Yes Miss Jane about this, she was rereading The Diamond Age at that point back in December, I think, and she said, "Don't worry, the dude with the skull gun, he's not there forever, you should try reading that again." And I did. I went straight back to it after I finished Snow Crash, and I'm glad I read it, but ultimate verdict is that I didn't enjoy it that much. In essence, this is a cyberpunk novel. It's set in a futuristic world where nanotechnology permeates all of human life, and geopolitical boundaries in, I think, probably typical Neal Stephenson or cyberpunk fashion have been done away with for the most part, and people are now collected into tribes. Your tribe has a particular political stance or religious stance or some sort of ideology that you share, and you're a part of that tribe. One of the primary tribes are the Neo-Victorians, and if you're tribeless, you're called a Theet. A Neo-Victorian lord named Finkel McGraw commissions a man named Hackworth to create an interactive digital book for his granddaughter that is designed to give her a complete education and a subversive education. Hackworth also has a daughter who is of the same age as Finkel McGraw's granddaughter, and he makes an illegal copy of the book to give that kind of education to his own daughter. He's mugged, that copy of the book falls into the hands of a Theet girl named Nell, and then later on Hackworth acquires another copy of the book to give to his own daughter. So there are 3 girls in this book who have copies of the Young Ladies Illustrated Primer, and I think essentially the story is a coming-of-age story for Nell about how the primer educates her, how it changes her, how her relationship with the primer gives her a different kind of education than it gives the other girls. And there's a lot in there about the relationship that she forms with the voice actor of her primer, the woman named Miranda, and all of that stuff. I really enjoyed the aspects of the story that involved Nell, her storyline, and watching how she evolves and how the primer has this amazing impact on her life was very interesting. I didn't enjoy the subplot or side story or other storyline that had Hackworth going off and joining that other tribe called the Drummers. I did not understand that at all, and I think the reason why I didn't really enjoy this book is because I didn't understand the high concept idea. If the point of the story is how education can influence your life and your standing in society, then I totally get that. But there's this whole bit near the end when all the storylines collide, and there's all this talk about the Drummers and how they're trying to, like, I don't know, hack security or something? I didn't understand that at all. If you read the book and you understood what that part was about, please let me know. I may have rushed through that bit a bit too fast and not paid enough attention, but it didn't capture my imagination the way that the abstract, high concept ideas in Snow Crash did. The second book that I finished this week was The Magicians by Lev Grossman. It has been so popular on BookTube recently that I'm not going to go into a big spiel about what it's about. Quentin Coldwater is a 17-year-old boy who discovers that magic exists. He goes to a school for magic called Break Bills for 4 or 5 years, And when he gets out with his group of friends, they are fully qualified magicians, but terrible people, and they make terrible decisions. What really bothered me about this book is something that I don't really want to talk about that much. It's kind of emotionally upsetting for me, which is basically that this is a group of teenagers, young adults, 20-somethings who, as far as I am concerned, are horribly failed by the adult authority figures in their lives. They are unprepared for the real world, they are psychologically messed up, and they have no family members, no faculty at the school, or anybody who recognizes that they have problems. This feels to me like a very weird thing to be upset about. It's a fiction novel, it's a fantasy novel, but that happens to be a thing in my personal life that I get really upset about. Parents and authority figures not taking care of people properly don't be that kind of adult, is what I'm trying to say. I did really enjoy this book. It was hard to finish, and I'm pretty sure that the next two books are going to be pretty hard to read too, but I think it's going to be worth it. The next book that I finished is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This was my fifth and final book for the February Fantasy Challenge, and I don't have much to say about it. Except that I think that this is a book that pairs really well with The Hobbit by Tolkien. If I had read this book immediately after I'd read The Hobbit as a child, I probably would have latched onto it really hard. It's a very unusual story about a unicorn who discovers she is the last unicorn, and she goes off on a quest to discover what happened to the other unicorns. She gets some traveling companions, and things happen. It is both kind of a sweet story, but also kind of a heartbreaking story. I came away from it rather confused. Once again, my difficult week may have gotten in the way of me really understanding and enjoying this book. It was good, but I didn't have a very deep connection to it. I just think that I would have enjoyed it a lot more if I read it when I was younger. The next book that I finished was an audiobook called Packing for Mars by Mary Roach. This is an audiobook that I discovered on Nicole's channel. Nicole loved this book, and I liked it a lot too. I just want to point out right away that the title is a little bit misleading. It's not actually 100% or even a part dedicated to what it would take to design an expedition and send people to Mars. It is almost exclusively concerned with explaining how people tested and designed ways for people to go to space. It's very much historical and talks about a lot of things that they didn't talk about in the press conferences during the Apollo and Gemini missions or in the Russian space missions. Things like the entire chapter devoted to motion sickness, which I will think more accurately could be called the vomit chapter. There's also the other one about sex in space, and then one of the final chapters, which I really shouldn't have listened to while I was eating, was, in very polite terms, the chapter devoted to the issue of astronauts using the bathroom in space. It's all really interesting. I highly recommend this. Unless you are a total space mission aficionado, I think there are going to be a lot of things in this book that you don't really know, that you don't hear people talking about more. Yeah, this was the highlight of my week, actually. I was always looking forward to listening to a couple of chapters of this every day. The last book that I finished this week was Zoes Tale by John Scalzi. It is the second to last Old Man's War book that is currently out. So Zoes Tale is a retelling of the events of the previous book called The Last Colony, but it is from Zoe's perspective. Zoe is the adopted daughter of two of the main protagonists in the series. My verdict is this. If you have read The Last Colony and you didn't come away with questions about stuff, don't read this book. It's kind of pointless. You might be more than a little bit bored. If you did have questions though, by all means, read this book. Zoe is a relatively interesting character. This book has a lot more to do with the Oban. You see a lot more of Hickory and Dickory, which I really enjoyed. And the Khonsu make another appearance, which is always fraught with excitement. And those were the highlights. I didn't enjoy the book that much when I got done with it because it was redundant, and I did not care for the narrative voice. Zoe is a teenage girl. That's not a strike against her. What is a strike against her is that this is very obviously an adult man writing in what he thinks is the voice of a sarcastic 15-year-old, and it did not work for me. There probably are teenage girls out there who talk like this, but I think that Scalzi's sarcastic humor and one-liners work better coming out of the mouths of adult characters. Just saying, my opinion. It's not a bad book, but it is not John Scalzi's best, and yes, it is redundant. And that's everything that I read this week. My hair is not cooperating. I am still reading Peace Like a River by Leif Enger. This is a buddy read I'm doing with my friend Rachel. It is about a man raising his 3 children in 1960s Minnesota, and this is not a book that I would have picked for myself, but I'm finding it to be very interesting, and I'm looking forward to talking to my friend about it. The other book that I will definitely get around to this week is Knocking on Heaven's Door by Lisa Randall. I talked about this more in my last video. This is the only book this week that I said I was going to read that I didn't actually get around to. I'm gonna get off? Yeah, just gonna get off. But I will read this coming week. I don't have any other specific books picked out to read this week. I'm just kind of gonna wing it and just pick random books from my unread books pile, and we'll see what happens. There are a couple that I know I will definitely be reading sometime in March because reasons. It's very likely that I will not be making another video between now and my next weekly wrap-up. There are reasons for this, mainly that I'm trying to decompress. Like I might have mentioned, I've been feeling very stressed here recently, and a lot of it is, I think this is a period where a lot of new booktubers go through where they start to maybe compare themselves to other booktubers that have been around for longer and are more successful for your definition of success, and you start having a lot of self-induced pressure to perform or to do things differently. I have spent the last couple of weeks looking at my subscription feed, feeling like I should be reading more books, making more videos, making different types of videos, and just like not being me, but being somebody else. And that's not good. We gotta stop that right away, right now, so that booktubing remains fun. So I'm not disappearing this week. I promise I'm not disappearing. A large part of the point of this is so that I have more time to talk to people, so I will be around in the comments, on Goodreads, on Twitter, and just maybe probably not making videos until my next wrap-up. Mini vacation, if you will. So that is it for me this week, and I will see you again in whatever next video I do. Bye.